Coming up on this episode.
Sometimes I'll position it as a really simple question: who comes to mind when you hear the word team? I've even, in some organisations, asked them to write down on a piece of paper the names of everyone in their team. And immediately what happens is everyone thinks of their direct reports. It's always the direct reports, the people that ultimately they believe that they are responsible for. Now, there is nothing more powerful than a team who knows that there's trust and that we have these challenging debates, and knowing that if I don't do as I say, then my team are going to hold me to account. And I don't want to let my peers down. So you know what? I'm going to make sure that this happens so that we're all good. That peer pressure is always huge. So I ask you now to take a look at the senior leadership team. Think about the peers, think about the meetings and the conversations that happen. Is there artificial harmony? Are you behind deadlines? Are you underperforming? Are you actually recognising there's a lot of siloed behaviours?
Welcome to the People Performance Podcast. The People Performance Podcast is made up of 3 series. First up, we have the Leader Lounge episodes with founder of T2, Martin Johnson. Then we have the guest interview episodes. And finally, we have our performance episodes delivered by our very own T2 consultants. For now, sit back, tune in and enjoy the People Performance Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the People Performance Podcast with me, Bernice Casserly. In today's Leader Lounge episode, what I'm going to do is introduce you to something that potentially could be destroying your business's success. So this comes from, and I suppose the reason why I wanted to do this topic today, comes from a lot of conversations that I've been having over the last few months. If you don't know, T2, we are the People Performance People. Everything that we do is helping to support businesses and organisations truly be the best that they can be. And when I've been working with senior leadership teams over the last few months, there's one key question that I've asked, and this is a question that really helps me understand exactly what's potentially going on within that team. And that's a very simple question, and a very simple question that can sometimes help me identify whether or not there's a little bit of disruption in that team. And that simply is, I ask them all to picture and think of the people that come to mind when they hear the word team. Sometimes I'll position it as a really simple question: who comes to mind when you hear the word team? I've even, in some organisations, asked them to write down on a piece of paper the names of everyone in their team. And immediately what happens is everyone thinks of their direct reports. It's always the direct reports, the people that ultimately they believe that they are responsible for. And the reality, this isn't kind of catastrophic, but it certainly can be. In this situation, it's natural, it's instinct. You automatically want to protect your people. But potentially, is that causing a disconnect or a potential trap? So in today's Leader Lounge episode, we're going to unpack a concept introduced by Patrick Lencioni around the first team. Why not viewing the senior leadership team and your collective peers as your first team can cause friction and create silos or even delays in overall organisation success. So let's take a look inside the story itself. Patrick Lencioni, he has authored many fantastic books. There's one that if you know me, you'll know that a big favourite of mine is that book just sat next to me there, which is The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And unlike many leadership books, that book, it's a story. It's simple to read. It's easy to relate to, and everyone who reads it can immediately connect with it. And it tells the story of Decision Tech, a huge, great organisation based in the tech industry over in America. And on paper, Decision Tech have absolutely everything that they need to truly thrive. They've got the most experienced executives. They've got a fantastic product. They've got a very clear business plan. They've had huge investment as well. Yet, despite all of that, they keep missing targets. Morale is down, and ultimately they're failing behind competitors, even though on paper they should be over exceeding when it comes to their competitors. So a decision is made for the CEO to take a step away and a step down from that role. And a new CEO, Catherine, comes into play. Now, Catherine, she's been hired to sort it all out. She's been hired to fix the mess. And what she does is, or what she doesn't do is she doesn't take time to look at business strategy. She doesn't focus on product. She doesn't jump straight into sales and marketing meetings in order to drive the numbers up. What she does is she takes a few weeks, a month or so, to just sit back and to observe. And in particular, she wants to observe the executive team. She needs to understand how they operate, how they communicate, what are their meetings like. And this causes quite a bit of disruption because then and there in that moment, all of the executive team, they're looking at Catherine and thinking, right, okay, you've come in to fix this mess. I'm a little bit cautious because you don't have any industry background in the tech world. So I'm not too sure kind of what you're going to do because we know what we're talking about here. And they get very frustrated by the lack of direction because her priority is to sit back and observe. So some of her observations is that when people view and look at the executive team, they don't use the word team. Often the word staff is used instead. And there's just no teamship in existence at all. Another observation is that meetings are really boring. I often say to people in workshops, tell me about your meetings. If your meetings are just boring updates that happen, it's an update from this team or this department, then this person talks. If there is no lively debate in a senior leadership team, then that's straight away a big sign of potential disconnect. The reality was that decision tech, meetings would happen, everyone would arrive, phones are there in front of them, laptops are on, people are tapping away because they're not truly listening to their peers because you're talking about your team and your department and that has no impact on me and what I'm responsible for. So there's disconnect and it's not productive. Marketing are blaming sales. Sales were blaming marketing. Engineering is thinking that's nothing to do with me. I'm engineering. The fact that we're not hitting our sales target, that does not impact me whatsoever. They were looking out for themselves. They were fighting their own battles in their own corners. And it was painful. And the reality was we've got a group of highly educated, qualified, highly experienced individuals who are in this executive team, but the reality is there was no team and it was completely dysfunctional and completely broken. The turning point, Catherine, after making all of these observations, she took them to a management offsite. Again, to quite a lot of frustration from the team because they're viewing it as this is not important. I've got a client meeting that I could attend on that day that might generate some revenue into the business, and that's our top priority at the moment. But Catherine was firm that things needed to change. And it was during that offsite that Catherine asked the question that I often ask to teams, which was around when you think of the word team, who comes to mind? Jan, who was the CFO, turns around and says, my team is my most important. And I'll be honest, my finance team is more important than the people who are sitting around this table in this room. And I know that I will protect them. I am mother hen. And I know they are all fiercely loyal to me. With that, Catherine responds and says, Jan, I'm really glad to hear that you're a fantastic manager and that you've created trust and psychological safety and loyalty within the finance team. However, this needs to change. Your first team needs to be this one. Which then leads into the rest of the story where Patrick Lencioni explores the 5 dysfunctions of a team and ultimately the impact if we don't have them. So starting off with the very first foundation, the most important critical factor to any team. And I want you to imagine a pyramid. This is the very bottom layer of that pyramid. And that is an absence of trust. If teams are unwilling to truly trust each other, it's going to ultimately impact every single next layer in all of this. And trust is a small word, but it's huge. In workshops, in conversations, when I'm facilitating a session around this topic with a senior leadership team, we spend hours talking about trust, unpicking it to truly understand what it actually is and what ultimately brings us and gives that feeling of trust. But Patrick Lencioni defines it as an unwillingness to trust, and that is simply to be vulnerable, has a huge impact. And that vulnerability, again, that's a huge word that a lot of senior leadership teams would say to me is something that vulnerability doesn't exist in a team. But vulnerability is important because vulnerability is what leads us to admit problems, to ask for help, to say, you know what, I really don't know if we're making the right decision here, or I need your support, I need your guidance. I don't think I'm the right person to drive and lead on this particular project. And the result of that is huge. It means that teams waste energy protecting themselves because of this fear of showing any type of invulnerability or any type of weakness. So teams need to overcome this. Again, this is the reason why at T2 we do so much work on building trust within any type of team, no matter what their level. This is also the reason why we are huge advocates of the work of The Attributes by Rich Davini, huge advocates of the work of Paul Hertz with Print on Unconscious Motivators. Teams not only need to know and understand themselves so that they can trust themselves and understand their strengths and weaknesses, but it's critical in growing a high-performing team as well. You need to know and understand each other, your differences, the ways in which you think differently as well, which then brings out strengths, potential blind spots as well. So if there is an absence of trust in your team, what are you doing to overcome that? Whether it be something as doing some self-awareness or really having the uncomfortable conversations to really dig into that. If there is an absence of trust, that leads into the second dysfunction of a team, which is the fear of conflict. Now, I always say to people, conflict, sometimes a word that can be a little bit scary. Sometimes people think of the word conflict and think of aggression and loud, big, heated arguments. And that's not what we're talking about here. Without trust, teams avoid passionate debate. Conflict, switch that word out to healthy challenge and debate, let's say. And this is really important. I tend to find, and I can see it just from observing a team and seeing how they communicate together and seeing who are the people that sit back and stay quiet, who are the people that leading the conversation. In many teams, if there is an absence of trust, it leads to artificial harmony. And that can be disruptive because the result and the reality is that meetings happen, people stay quiet, and unspoken disagreements start to fester, and that leads to a suboptimal result. It means that people are scared or fearful to challenge each other, to contribute to that debate, so they can't truly buy into the decision that is made. And that then leads to a passive-aggressive behaviour. How do we overcome it? So this is where conflict, yes, is needed, but as I said earlier, it needs to be seen as healthy challenge and debate in order to ensure that we're making the very best decision. With one team that I've been working with recently, we spoke about being able to mine for conflict, and that is where having someone dedicated in every meeting to say, right, okay, this is really important that we get everyone's input here. It's observing the room, it's looking out for body language, looking at who's not contributing. Sometimes it's calling someone out and saying, hey, this has a huge impact on your department. I know that you've got thoughts and opinions on this, and you're being quiet at the moment. I need you to contribute to this conversation. So please share with the group, what are your thoughts? What are your potential challenges if we make this decision in this way? And it's that one person's responsibility to mine for it. It's then their responsibility when the challenge and debate starts to happen, and naturally it feels a little bit uncomfortable for people. It's that person's job to say, this is healthy, this is good, let's continue. So an absence of trust leads to a fear of conflict. If there is a fear of conflict, that leads to a lack of commitment. So teams who don't dig into that healthy debate, they are rarely able to truly gain clarity and commitment to buy into what's going to happen next. This leads to ambiguity. It means that the team leaves meetings feeling just unclear on priorities, unclear on direction and next steps. And again, the impact of this is huge because that then leads on to the next dysfunction, which is an avoidance of accountability. If we're not having lively, passionate, debateful conversations, that naturally means that we can buy into decisions, even if I don't fundamentally agree with that decision, but I've been able to contribute. My thoughts and my opinions and my rationale's been respected, listened to and heard. I can still buy into what you say. If there is a lack of commitment, which leads to an avoidance of accountability, then there's no clear deadlines and we don't know what's going to happen next. That also then means that because of that, there's a lack of plan. I'm hesitant to call out my peers. And you know what? I'm just going to focus on my own lane. I'm going to focus on my own actions and what I need to do. And sometimes what happens is people look to the person who's most senior and they think, okay, well, I'm not going to call out that because I don't actually know if we were clear on what the expectations were. So I now expect the CEO or the managing director to call out certain behaviours or to drive that accountability. Now, there is nothing more powerful than a team who knows that there's trust and that we have these challenging debates, and knowing that if I don't do as I say, then my team are going to hold me to account. And I don't want to let my peers down. So you know what? I'm going to make sure that this happens so that we're all good. That peer pressure is always huge. So how do we overcome this lack of commitment and avoidance of accountability? It comes down to the conversation and communication again. We need to ensure that we are regularly reviewing progress against very clear strategy, very clear goals, so that we can hold each other to account. So discussions are open, discussions are honest, and we can challenge directly. Now, the final dysfunction of a team is an inattention to results. So let's go back. If there is an absence of trust, which leads to a fear of conflict, which leads to a lack of commitment, which then creates an avoidance of accountability, the impact of that is an inattention to results. Team members put their own ego, status, their own departmental function ahead of the collective goals of a team. So the result, the organisation will fail to grow. We are going to miss targets, and that then has a huge impact on high performance. And it can then even cause high performers to leave. To overcome an inattention to results, we have to switch this entire mindset and the whole narrative. We have to focus on collective results, and the senior leadership team need to all be able to buy into and understand the collective result and how we all contribute to that in order to grow the business, in order to drive and move it forwards. It means that reward and recognition also needs to switch and change. Reward and recognition in many businesses is based on individual performance. If you want to completely change this entire mindset and narrative, you need to look at reward and recognition as well. How do we reward based on collective results rather than individual success? So, this is a huge topic. It's a topic that I'm quite passionate about. I don't have favourites when it comes to the different types of sessions and workshops that we facilitate, but this is one that I really enjoy, because truly building and growing a high-performing team, it's not as simple as reading one book and hey presto, it's been fixed. It requires breaking down leadership habits that have existed for decades. This is painful because you have to almost re-break the team in order to build the foundation to move it forwards. And this is exactly where doing it alone can be really dangerous and really challenging at times. And this is why we exist, so that we can help support teams in breaking it to rebuild it again. So I ask you now to take a look at the senior leadership team. Think about the peers, think about the meetings and the conversations that happen. Is there artificial harmony? Are you behind deadlines? Are you underperforming? Are you actually recognising there's a lot of siloed behaviours? Then I highly recommend you read the book, Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but also think about where you're going to get support and what are you going to do in order to shift this mindset from siloed behaviour to the senior leadership team and the people who exist at peer level. They're my first team. You need to switch that narrative, and we can certainly help with that. So I hope this has sparked some curiosity for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll be back soon for another People Performance podcast.
The People Performance Podcast, brought to you by T2.